The man driving the car that was fleeing police was Jason E. Carrolls, 35 years old. On June 13, 2022, Jason Carrolls drowned his 3 children, Bryant, 5, Cassidy, 3, and Gideon, 2, one by one in a bathtub at their home on 200 East Camden Lane in Round Lake Beach, Illinois. After committing the murders, Carrolls left a chilling note for his estranged wife, Deborah Carrolls. "If I can't have them, neither can you." He then fled, triggering a 17-minute high-speed police chase that ended in a crash near Interstate 80 in Joliet. Carrolls was apprehended at the scene and confessed. In December 2023, he pleaded guilty but mentally ill and was sentenced in February 2024 to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jason Carrolls, a former serviceman who once worked as an Arabic translator for the U.S. military, had been unemployed since December 2021. His marriage with Deborah had lasted 7 years, but was in the process of unraveling, with escalating divorce proceedings and a bitter custody battle over their 3 children. In a Twitch stream from February 2022, under the name Crimson Fury OG, he mentioned being in a dark place, experiencing a midlife crisis, and losing his sense of self. He thanked Deborah for helping him through it, suggesting their relationship once had supportive moments. But by June, the emotional weight of the failed marriage and prolonged unemployment seemed to have deepened his sense of helplessness and worthlessness. The situation deteriorated further when Carrolls discovered Deborah had been unfaithful, an incident he learned about shortly after his birthday. This perceived betrayal appeared to trigger a wave of humiliation and loss of control. He contacted a former coworker to confirm the affair, highlighting a fixation on being deceived. The ongoing custody dispute only fueled his resentment, as he believed Deborah was keeping the children away from him, despite his own acknowledgement that she may have simply moved on with someone else. Carrolls maintained contact with Deborah, though their conversations were strained, often revolving around accusations of infidelity and child-rearing responsibilities. He sought sympathy from others, like his former colleague, but never pursued professional psychological help, despite Deborah's urging. While he had no recorded history of criminal activity, substance abuse, or diagnosed mental illness, Deborah reported that several people had expressed concern about his unstable mental state, including signs of suicidal ideation. This phase paints a picture of a man in a severe psychological tailspin, caught between financial despair, romantic betrayal, and a growing sense of emasculation and paternal failure. While there's no clear evidence that Carrolls meticulously planned the murders long in advance, his deteriorating mindset set the stage for a highly emotional and violent outburst. On the evening of June 12th, Carrolls had a phone call with Deborah that lasted until around midnight. Despite moments of civility, Carrolls remained deeply skeptical of her sincerity. Less than an hour after that call ended, he began the process of killing his children, drowning them one by one in the bathtub. He left behind a letter as well as a message written on a whiteboard. Carrolls claimed he believed killing the children was an act of saving them from Deborah, whom he accused of neglect and potential harm. He said the children deserved to be with him and that they would be together in the afterlife. This suggests delusional thinking, or at least distorted cognition, though no formal diagnosis of psychosis was ever made public. His confession also referenced a moment of emotional explosion. Deborah's words during the phone call, calling him a bad father, bad husband, were described as the final straw, triggering a mental rupture. This points to an emotional combustion after prolonged internal stress and humiliation. The act of revenge is unmistakable. The note he left, "If I can't have them, neither can you," and his recollection of Deborah swearing on the lives of the kids that she hadn't cheated, reflect a calculated intent to inflict maximum emotional pain. The murders weren't random. They were an act of vengeance, directed not at the children, but through them, at their mother. He didn't use a weapon, despite having knives at the scene with his own blood on them, perhaps to avoid visible injuries, or to maintain a twisted illusion of a peaceful death. He wrote the letter and message in clear handwriting, clearly aiming to maximize Deborah's trauma upon discovering the scene. After the killings, Carrolls attempted suicide multiple times at the scene, leaving a significant amount of his own blood. Whether driven by guilt, despair, or a desire to join the children in death, This behavior reflects a deeply self-destructive mindset. This phase highlights a convergence of emotional overload, vengeful intent, and possibly psychotic delusion. The call with Deborah acted as the immediate trigger, but the premeditated manner of the killings and the written notes suggest Carroll's maintained a disturbing degree of control and purpose. His stated intent to save the children seems less like genuine belief and more like a delusional justification layered over a desire for psychological domination. Following the murders, Carroll's fled the scene in his car, initiating a high-speed police pursuit that ended in a crash. At the scene of his arrest, he admitted responsibility and repeated his confession during later interrogations. Initially, he pleaded not guilty, but in December 2023, he changed his plea to guilty but mentally ill and was sentenced to life in prison in February 2024. Carroll's expressed remorse and internal conflict. He stated he didn't know why he did it, but also claimed the children deserved to be with him. He characterized the act as a way to free himself from pain, but paradoxically insisted he didn't intend to hurt Deborah. These statements reflect deep psychological dissonance, possibly a combination of guilt and denial. He also acknowledged that he knew Deborah would soon arrive and discover the scene, and said he fled to avoid seeing her reaction, fearing he would hurt her further. This implies a conscious understanding of the emotional consequences, albeit insufficient to deter the crime. His mental illness was legally recognized under the plea of guilty but mentally ill, suggesting forensic experts confirmed some form of psychological disturbance at the time of the offense. However, no specific diagnosis has been made public. This plea does not reduce his sentence, but ensures he receives psychiatric care in prison. Throughout police questioning, Carroll's offered detailed accounts of his actions and motives. His testimony, though often contradictory, claiming not to want to hurt Deborah while admitting he wrote the notes to do exactly that, shows both emotional manipulation and a resigned acceptance of responsibility. His repeated suicide attempts reinforce a picture of self-loathing and psychological collapse. His cooperation with authorities, combined with his apparent regret, could indicate genuine remorse, but also may reflect an attempt to reclaim some moral ground or mitigate judgment. Carroll's chose a hands-on, prolonged method, drowning each child, to ensure their deaths, suggesting both determination and premeditation. He didn't use more overtly violent means, possibly to construct a warped narrative of mercy. His preparation of the crime scene, including the letter and whiteboard message, reveals psychological manipulation. These weren't crimes of impulse alone, they were acts designed to haunt his wife, to punish her emotionally in perpetuity. Post-crime behavior, failed suicide, fleeing, confessing, suggests a man teetering between guilt and desperation, with no long-term strategy to evade justice. His motivations stem from a toxic cocktail of revenge, psychological breakdown, and delusional rationalization. The clearest motive was to punish Deborah. His note and actions show a desire to destroy what she loved most. Prosecutor Eric Kallada called Carroll's actions brutal, evil, and calculating, emphasizing how he weaponized the children to cause maximum psychological harm. Carroll's claimed he was saving the children from neglect or abuse, and that they would remain with him forever in the afterlife.
I didn't want this to end. I wanted to be with them forever.
This may have been a delusion, or merely a way to absolve himself of guilt. His downward spiral included unemployment, a failed marriage, loss of paternal identity, and the death of his role as provider. These elements contributed to a perceived collapse of control, and the murders served as his grotesque attempt to reclaim power, even in the most horrific way. Jason Carroll's psychological profile traces a grim trajectory: identity crisis and betrayal before the crime, a combination of rage and delusion during the act, and a fractured sense of remorse after arrest. His actions reflect a disturbing blend of vengeance, emotional manipulation, and self-destruction. While the court acknowledged mental illness, his ability to plan, execute, and articulate his actions indicates that he bore full moral and legal responsibility. This case is not only a devastating instance of family tragedy, it is a cautionary tale about unresolved mental health crises and the lethal potential of untreated emotional collapse in the context of domestic turmoil.